Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you. I am Sandra Grauschopf, and I'm the Customer Marketing Manager here at Loxo. And I'm joined today by Taylor Latham and Palmer Powers. Palmer is our Senior Product Marketing Manager. And Taylor, can you remind me of your title?
Senior Account Executive.
Senior Account Executive. And we're going to be talking today about how to present candidates to clients in a way that is more likely to land interviews. So we're going to start out with Taylor giving us some thought leadership background. He's got a really great new framework for how you can think about presenting candidates to clients. And then Palmer is going to give us a little walkthrough of the different methods of presenting candidates within the Loxo platform, including our brand new remade hiring manager platform and executive presentations. Taylor, you want to take it away?
Thanks, Sandra. Excited to be here, guys. So for those that I haven't met, I'm Taylor, one of the senior account executives here. I've been at Loxo for 3.5 years now. Before I was here at Loxo, I was in recruiting myself for a good number of years. This is relevant to where I come from and excited to have the opportunity to come today and help you guys, hopefully share some things I've seen in the past that worked well for me. And specifically, the reason we're taking this approach to it is the two different firms I was at historically had one of the highest ratios of candidates I would submit were requested for interviews. So call that send outs, call the interview ratio, however we want to call it. Across both of the firms I was at, I consistently had one of the higher percentages of that amongst pretty large teams. And there are some reasons why and some things I learned along the way. And the goal of this time today is to share that with you all, give you some really easy, tactful things to apply so that you as well will see an increase and a boost in your conversion rates of candidates you're submitting, getting to that interview. Again, that's the really first important step when we're talking about making that placement. We got to get the candidates in front of the clients. So we're going to give you some points, some pointers, some easy tips to apply to boost your conversion rate of getting those interview requests. The big idea, and what I saw really consistently in my time on the other side of the screen, is it's really sometimes we think, and there's this tendency and this really a temptation to think, I need more interviews, automatically think I need more candidates or I need to submit more candidates. It's not always about submitting more or higher volume. The switch I want us to think about today and what I consistently focused on in my time was even if I maybe submit a couple less candidates than others, if we can paint a picture that helps that hiring manager we're sending that candidate or candidates to clearly see why that candidate is not just a good fit, but the right fit, the perfect fit for that role, it's going to get you higher send outs, higher conversion rates on that. So the switch from more candidates to maybe it's less, but we're focusing on that really compelling, resonating reasoning that we're presenting and putting in front of our client is what I had success with. There were plenty of times I would submit less candidates than, again, my coworkers, but I was consistently getting more interview requests. The reason I saw that and the reason what you guys are all striving for, we know this. We all want to be those trusted advisors to our clients. I don't think anybody in the room would say, I just want to be another vendor. I just want to be another recruiter that's throwing resumes across the wall, right? You want to be a great recruiter. The difference when we can create, how we do that is by creating confidence. So your goal at the end of this webinar is the next time you go to submit candidates, you're going to be thinking through the mindset and have the confidence of, I know this candidate is going to get asked to interview with my client. I know this client is going to want to meet this person because you're going to spell out and paint this really beautiful picture to your client of why this person is a fit for the role. You're creating that confidence. You're becoming that trusted advisor that you want to be, your client wants you to be, so that when they have a need, you're the first person they're calling. You become that vendor of choice because you are that trusted advisor now. And here's how we're going to do that. We're going to shift from just throwing resumes over the wall and really talk about storytelling. We already know that storytelling works. We coach candidates all the time about the STAR framework. When you're in front of a client and you're interviewing, you're doing the STAR framework, situation, task, action, result. This is something really common for all of us. And we know it works because stories, they're memorable, right? People resonate with personal stories. They provide context, that bullet points that words don't provide. They demonstrate real depth, real business level impact, and they build that confidence. So if we teach it on the candidate side, why not really use a similar framework on the client side, the presentation side, to tell that story to our clients? Let's take a scenario. Here's the example of a search. You guys are gonna think you've gotten this role from your client, right? Hiring challenge. We're looking for a VP of product. Our client is a certified B corporation. That's going to be an important element we're going to unpack here. Certified B corporation means they have certain levels of authentication and certificate from government that they do environmentally friendly and environmental cleanliness kind of work. Some things we're looking for. They scale their product organization, prepare for international expansion, cross-functional alignment. These are basic things we're going to assume you know for your client, but we're also going to assume you've done a deeper level client intake. You've done work with this client in the past. You know beyond just the things they're looking for, what's really going to resonate, right? But let's look through the lens of that certified B corporation, a VP of products, and let's look at two different possible examples that we could submit and just use as a candidate submission. So on the left is an example of, and I saw this a lot again in my time, a submission could just be copy and paste bullet points from the resume. Or maybe we change the words a little bit, but it doesn't really add any layer of context. It's just rewording bullets and throw those bullets across. That's the left, right? A resume summary. On the right, we have a story, right? Additional context. I won't read you the whole thing, but those highlighted sections are a lot of the things we're talking about, where we're really drawing that relevancy about how they've helped their current organization do similar things or overcome similar challenges your client is facing, numbers, percentages. So the question is, and we want you guys to answer this, which version of this do you feel has more of an emotional impact? If you're the client, which version of this do you feel is going to create a deeper relevancy and connection for you to want to speak to that candidate?
So right now we're about 80% the right side and about 20% left side.
Why? Again, because that story creates that emotional connection, that next layer context. I, as the hiring manager, start to envision this person in the role and start to envision who they are, their interests. And that's going to make me want to speak with that person over just bullets, again, that I'm already going to see in a resume. So we have another acronym. It starts with S, and it's the word we're here talking about, story. So how we create story, let's break it out. Each letter is going to give you some context that you're going to think about withdrawing from the candidate to get over to the client. First thing we want to talk about is situation. So you've spent time with your client. You understand, sure, what needs to be done for this role and the task this person will do. But deeper than that, you know the departmental challenges your client is facing. You know the broader business challenges and situations that company is walking into for the next year. So what we want to do is draw a bridge, build a bridge of a situation your candidate has been in the past or is in currently in their current role and tie that as best as we can to the situation your client is in today or the situation the candidate would be walking into the role, right? So when they joined the previous company, they were helping prepare for rapid expansion. It's a similar thing your client doing just as an example, but you'll know what your client's current situation, big business objectives, OKRs are, and we want to draw similarity of situations that your candidate's been in. We want to highlight that as a part of that story, probably lead with that piece. As a part of that, that's going to bring us to our next piece. We've got T, transformation. What changed specifically because that person was there? What changed because that individual was in that role? Easy example. They align different departments beyond that too. And this will bleed us into the next one. How do we take that transformation and speak to the things they accomplished Yes, for the role, but then again, the broader business moving forward, the broader business impact that came of that, the transformation piece rolls right into this next part. O, outcomes, right? As a part of that transformation, what specific outcomes were delivered? Measurable things. Numbers tell stories very well. We all know when numbers are involved, it's more believable. You can see it, you can envision it. It means so much more. So, specific outcomes that person achieved. How many markets did they expand to? They increased customer retention by X percentage. They increased revenue or ARR by Y percentage year over year. And again, it's not going to be the same templated thing every time. You're going to draw the relevancy to the big outcomes your specific hiring manager in their role needs to accomplish because of their leadership, because of the greater business impacts. And you're going to draw that bridge of how your candidate did something very similar to drive similar outcomes. And then the tying thread between all of this comes to our relevance. So you guys heard me allude to this and probably already say the word a few times now, but the challenge and the opportunity for you, every client's different. Again, as that trusted advisor, you're always thinking through the lens of when I submit this candidate, what are those next layers of relevancy this client, this individual human being on the other side of this cares about? Yes, the job to be done. Further than that, the relevancy of the specific situation the business is in, the relevance of things like mission alignment, values of organization, that cultural alignment we're talking about. When you submit a candidate to a client, of course, they're thinking about can the candidate do this job, but they're thinking deeper. They're thinking, is this candidate excited about this organization? Is this candidate excited about the mission of our company? Is this candidate going to be here for a long time? Are they going to be excited in this team setting? So we would really want to draw the relevancy beyond just the role and tie it into that deeper personal alignment, value alignment, mission alignment, and then why your recommendation. So use your expertise. End with a punchy statement, right? I believe this candidate makes an immediate impact for all the things I've spelled out for you here, and strongly recommend X, whatever X is. You know your client's process, what needs to happen next. Recommend that when appropriate. Recommend skip the stage or go to that panel interview, whatever the situation is. Again, think through that confidence of I'm the trusted advisor. I've done a good job telling my client why they're a really good fit. And now I'm going to end with, because of that, you need to take action so you don't lose out on this person, right? Incorporate the things that you know about your candidate that they might not know. Hey, they're interviewing for other roles. They might have an offer coming from someone else soon. We need to move quickly. These are all those points and relevancy that's going to move you from just throwing resumes over and really becoming that trusted advisor that your client's really going to start trusting more and more. And again, you'll become that person they reach out to first. So before we wrap it up, right, review that. We've got situation, transformation, outcomes, relevance, and then your recommendation. So I want to run a quick little, let's try this on for size, if you will. Let's get some involvement here and take an example of a search. And through that story framework, I want you guys to be a part of this and help me think through ways we could create the story of this candidate. So resume snippet, let's envision we have a candidate we're presenting for a sales manager role for our client. Some bullet points here about things they've done, current accomplishments, and their current role. And then in the bottom part, we've got some really important information about the client itself, the company we're doing the search for. Let's envision it's Nexaflow AI in this scenario. Enterprise SaaS startup. We're looking for high velocity technical sales experts, really technical kind of salespeople, early adopter personalities in the areas of artificial intelligence, but they still have that hands-on coach mentality where they're capable of getting coaching, but yet still scaling, rolling with the punches, and moving quickly. So the question, and we want to hear you guys in chat, what could you ask? What types of questions may you ask this candidate in an interview or a screening and intake call on your side to then create that story that you'd go present to your client?
Anyone have any ideas? How are you involved with the training of your team of 8 reps? What growth did you see over your time? That's great. Tell me about a situation in which things were not going well and how you managed through that. I love that. How did you improve your closing rate? This is really a good one. Can you give me an example of coaching you did with a salesperson and what the result was? Also excellent. Tell me about the strategy or approach that improved the closing rate. Ask them to create the story for themselves and base questions on that. That's very smart. How was the culture of the team when you came in? What was your biggest impact? What did you do to improve your closing rate? Something I would consider here too is looking for that alignment with the client. So, what do you think about AI? How long did it take you to start using Claude once it came out, or questions along those lines?
Yeah, to add to that, these are all really good. What I'm looking for as I read some of these responses is questions drawing it back to the soft intangibles about the company and the excitement and the mission and value alignment. So to your point, right? Hey, tell me about your personal use of AI. Hugely open question, right? But it's going to uncover so much. And you're going to have the opportunity to see if that person's excited about AI, they really want to be a part of a company that's on the cutting edge of building AI, or they're just looking for another sales job, right? And we want the person that's really excited about AI. And then obviously we want to create that story and present that to our client. So I think something to think about is just that next layer depth of drawing that bridge back again about the client itself, the mission alignment. An example I think of when we go back to the Certified B Corporation, we use that example for a reason. It's something that I actually did in one of my firms, did a lot of searching for a client based in Atlanta that was a certified B Corp. And whenever I was speaking to a candidate for any role I was doing for them, it didn't matter. We did sales roles, we did marketing roles for them. I would always ask that candidate or tell them, hey, look, these guys are certified B Corp. Here's what that means. What do you think of that? And I just wanted to leave it open and let them talk. Because what I was looking for and drawing out of them was like, oh, they're really excited about it. They would tell me stories about how they spend their weekends volunteering, cleaning up trash on the side of the road, or nonprofits that are really involved with environmental things. Nothing that's going to maybe be on their resume, nothing that is required for them to do the job, but that next layer of I can create that story and connect and draw that bridge. My client's going to know that this person is going to be really aligned with your organization. They're going to be aligned with your mission. They're going to be excited about what you're doing beyond just getting the job done. They're excited about the company. So maybe the challenge and to think through this is really think through those next layer questions you can be asking about how your candidate feels that they're this type of organization. So back to this example. Yeah, tell me about how you use AI. What's your personal favorite LLM and why? Things like that. You're going to get really good information that you can take those little snippets and make that really relevant in your submission where it would be helpful.
So, I just wanted to take a pause here and ask if anyone has any questions they'd like to bring up to Taylor before we move into the Loxo demo. Erilyn is asking how long a candidate presentation should be, Taylor.
It's a juicy one. I think there's no silver bullet. And I think a lot of your job as that trusted advisor is to know what your particular client wants to see, what's going to resonate. Some of that comes with reps, some of that comes with understanding. I personally think a paragraph of that story, maybe some bullets that are reinforcing it. If you know your hiring manager prefers bullet context, that's fine, but still look for the story points in the bullets, not just copying pasting from the resume. But I would personally always aim for 4 to 5 lines of text as that story, and then some really punchy bullets that reinforce that as the main points. I think it's always going to depend on what your client prefers, and you'll know that better than anyone else.
And remember, you can also use story and bullet points. You can have a S bullet, a T bullet, or whatever works, whatever flows right for you. Like some people might want to be drawn in a little more, and some people want to be able to skim. And Ross says using that in the scorecard with Loxo, excellent idea.
Deborah's got a
Deborah's
good question that's going to roll right into this next part, I think.
fantastic. We're joining Loxo in a couple of months. We have a standard format for notes. Is there a place to store the info we send to the client? Let's go ahead and move into the Loxo demo, and then we'll see if these questions have been answered by that. Okay? Let's turn it over to Palmer now.
Thank you, Taylor. So, hey guys, I'm Palmer. I'm the product marketing manager here at Loxo, if you haven't seen me before. And like we talked about earlier, there are a lot of different features inside Loxo that help you communicate and collaborate with your clients. So I'm going to change gears a little bit and we'll touch on what we talked about today. But really, I want to go over the tools specifically inside Loxo that give you the opportunity to share different candidates with clients at different stages of your workflow. So first, you can pitch a candidate, and I'll show you how to do that. But that's really when you have a great candidate, maybe you don't work with a client yet and they have an open job and you're pitching a candidate to win that client, right? Then you have your candidate submittal agent. That is used for when you're post shortlist and you want to submit a candidate for interview to your hiring manager. There's different ways to share that, and we'll go over that later today. There's the branded resume. That's not necessarily something that you have to build. It's automatically built, but this is really just the professional document of their experience and expertise that is automatically built within the candidate profile inside Loxo. There are executive presentations, which allow you to share those kind of status updates with your clients. So if you share a long list update and then a short list update, or if you just want to share status updates along the way, you can. And that's in PDF form. And then the hiring manager portal, which is really the collaboration space for you and your clients. So that is where you can basically share your pipeline with them in real time, and they have access to go in and leave comments and see your executive presentations in there, and then you can collaborate. All of that goes back to the candidate profile, and you have the ability to access all of their notes. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we can jump into what this looks like in real life. So for the sake of this demo, I am going to act as a recruiter at a recruiting agency, and my client is going to be Sandra at Office Depot. She's hiring for an office manager role. So I am going to go ahead and set the scene. Okay, so I do not work with Office Depot yet. They are a client that I really want to win. Sandra has this open role, and I have the perfect candidate that I want to pitch to Sandra. So Pam, here is my perfect candidate. She's got a lot of experience managing the office, and I'm really excited to pitch this to Sandra. So first things first, let's go into Pam's branded resume. So in the candidate profile, you'll see this little resume icon. You can click that. And this is automatically created with every candidate profile. It is basically just the PDF version of their profile. So it has their experience, it has their salary, it has their skills, their education. And this is available to print and send as a PDF. Typically, this is not used as a PDF and sent, and I'll show that in just a second why. But this is a great tool to have in your back pocket if you want to use it for records, or if you always send a resume to your clients, something to know. You do have the option to customize what's visible here. So for instance, let's say I didn't want to share compensation on this resume, or I didn't want them to be skewed by her photo. You can remove any of that. Or if you simply just wanted to anonymize the entire resume, you can just click this and it'll do that. So you do have the ability to print that. But like I said, this is probably the least used on its own as a shareable document. And the reason that is because when you're ready to pitch a candidate, that is going to pitch the branded resume. So I'm ready to pitch this to Sandra. I'm going to come in here and say pitch candidate, and you'll see that the branded resume shows up. I want to share the photo, and I'm just going to take off compensation here and contact info. They don't need to know all that yet. And I'm going to click continue. Now, you can search for your contact here. I'm just going to pick Sandra, and then you can email, or if you've reached out in a different way, you can just manually mark them as pitched without sending an email, and that just in the activity in the sales CRM will update that they've been pitched, but maybe you didn't want to do it via email. For this example, I'm going to do it via email, and I have preloaded this with a email template that I've built based on what we learned about today. So just giving a good chunk of information about Pam and why she's a great candidate that I want to share with her. Really, at the end, I'm asking for 15 minutes to introduce her and introduce our recruiting agency and try to win the business. And then I'm gonna go ahead and send that. So once I've pitched the candidate, I'll go ahead and just show you really quick. It does show up in the sales CRM under pitches, and that is just for reporting, and you can manage your pitches the way that you typically do in your pipeline. And it also shows up in the activity of the candidate, so I'll show you that as well. So you can see that I pitched this yesterday while I was testing this demo app. I didn't officially send the email, which is why it's not showing as pitched here. Alrighty, so let's say I have won the deal. Office Depot wants to work with me. Sandra thinks I am just the best recruiter around. So it's time to open the job, right? So I'm going to go ahead and open the job. I have started sourcing people. I've created a good long list. And at this point, I want to share all the admin info with my client, right? So I'm telling Sandra, hey, this is how I'm going to start communicating with you. These are the steps I'm typically going to run through. This is how it's going to work. This is how we run our business. And this is how we can communicate. I recommend sharing the hiring manager portal at this stage just because it's the most natural time to teach them how to use it, share the link, and they'll be able to see everything that you share with them in that hiring manager portal. And we'll go through that kind of multiple times throughout this demo today. Once I open the job, I'm going to click the share button and I'm going to share it with Sandra. As you see, I've already done this. You can pick what stages you want to share. For this demo, I'm going to pick all stages, all presentations, and then you can choose. You can either send this email or send an automated email with the link to the hiring manager portal, or you can copy the link and add it to your own email. So if you send an intro email that says like, this is how we're going to communicate, blah, 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 here's the hiring manager portal, send them the link in that, and this is where you can see all your information, right? So you can do that as well. So once you've shared that, this is what your hiring manager is going to see. So I've shared this with Sandra. This is going to be Sandra's view of the hiring manager portal. At this stage, obviously, I've already longlisted. Let's pretend like we haven't longlisted yet. We've just opened this job, right? So she would just see this blank thing. She would see presentations up here at the top, any documents that I've added. She can add her own people to this pipeline, whether that's an internal hire or somebody that sent their resume directly to Sandra. So she can go ahead and upload those to the pipeline herself. She also has the ability to see reports. All of these things are things that you can toggle on and off in settings, just so you guys know. But if you wanted to share reports with the people in the pipeline, she can see general compensation, where they're coming from, if they're a referral or if she added them, how long this has taken, and all of the job reporting. And then if you're working multiple jobs with one client, if they just click jobs, they'll have a list of all of the jobs that they're working. So they'll have the ability to collaborate on multiple jobs with one link, which is something great that we've added with this new update. All right, so we'll come back to the hiring manager portal in just a second. But let's say you've shared all the admin stuff, you taught them how to use the portal, and now we've long listed people. So my recruiting firm always shares a long list status update. Hey, these are the candidates that we've long listed, and we're ready to share this list with you to see who your favorite people are, or just let you know that this is where we are in the process. So this is where you would leverage your executive presentations. Executive presentations you can send via PDF, or you can share them via the hiring manager portal. It shows up under presentations where I showed you at the top. And the good thing about these new executive presentations is you can create global templates, or you can create job specific presentations. So what I mean by that is, let's say my recruiting agency always shares a long list update, a short list update, and maybe an overall final, this is where we landed. I can create those 3 templates with my branding, my font that I like to use, the cover image that I like to use, and what we typically share in each of those updates, so that me as a recruiter, I don't have to go in and update those things every single time. I can just create or copy that for my job and go ahead and send it on. So I can send those in minutes instead of spending hours creating those client presentations, because I've had to do those things over and over again each time. For the sake of this demo, I've created a long list presentation already, but I'll show you how I've done this. So in edit mode, there are a lot of customization options. So you can pick landscape or portrait. You can choose your accent color, your hiring manager or your hiring company's accent color, your accent color, a custom color. There's a lot of different options that you can choose here. And then you can upload your cover image. You can choose a lot of page design and branding that you want within your executive presentation. So let's say you want your logo on the front page and you don't want it on every page. You can choose that, and you can choose who this is presented by. So today this is presented by me, but maybe you don't want to share that, so you can turn that off. There's a lot of customization options here. Next, you can add your executive summary. So I'm going to go ahead and paste in a summary that I have written based on what we learned today. Basically just saying, hey, this is the long list update for you guys. This is the presentation. This is the success criteria that we have for this job based on, and how we chose the long list candidates based on what you were asking for in this role. So very specific about what you were looking for, why these people were chosen to be in the long list, and how we're going to move forward. The executive summary, if you wanted to change it to overview or something like that, everything in here is completely editable. So you can change that to whatever you guys want to use as far as verbiage goes. And this is a long list presentation. So we are going to share the candidates in our long list with our client today. So I have pre-written candidate summaries based on the story method. So you can see I've bolded the things that are part of that story. And you can always write this with AI. Loxo is going to basically pull from their candidate profile, from intake notes, from information that they have from the candidate and write these summaries for you. But as we learned today, there's so much context and detail that is not in Loxo that you have not put in the notes or do not live inside your database that truly live in the conversations that you've had with your client or things that you know about the people that you've talked to. So it is so important for you to add your own personal context to these and really create that story and dive deeper. This AI is not meant to completely use full stop. It's just used to pull that data for you. So it makes your job faster than what it used to be when you have to go back to your candidate and look them up and make sure that you're pulling the right information and doing those things, okay? Yes, you're gonna still have to write your candidate summaries or at least part of them, but Loxo's AI can help you do that a lot faster by pulling that information in. I can also choose by just clicking this little button what is in this section content. So if I didn't want to share the photo, or maybe I didn't want to share specific compensation, for instance, for this long list report, I've turned off current salary, bonus, equity, and any compensation notes that I have. Maybe in my short list, I would want to share that level of information. But for this, I'm keeping it higher level so I can pick and choose what information I want in there. So once that is complete, you can save that. I'm going to save changes. And like I said, you can download this as a PDF if you want to send that as an email to your client, if that's how you communicate with them. But I recommend using the hiring manager portal for your catch-all collaboration and communication with your client. It's going to be the cleanest place and the most real time place to share information. So as you're updating your pipeline, the hiring manager portal is updated. So that is going to be the best place to collaborate with your clients. So once I've created this presentation, it will show in the presentations here for my clients. So all I have to do is message them and say, hey, go check your portal. The long list presentation is in there for you. Please go take a look and let me know what you think. All right. So we've shared our long list presentation and we're going to go ahead and shortlist some candidates. So let's say Dwight, great option. Pam, awesome option. And Oscar, also in the lead here. So at this stage, we will want to go into the candidate submittal agent process. You have two options here. So if you're using the hiring manager portal, I recommend writing a candidate summary either here, and I'll show you in just a second, or within your executive presentations and just create a shortlist presentation instead of sending through the candidate submittal. That is just going to keep everything in your portal. But if you don't want to use the hiring manager portal and you use email all the time, you can go through the full submittal process and workflow and completely send your candidate submittals via email. And that is completely fine. We've built this to work the way that you want to work. So either way, you can do that. So I want to submit all of the people that I've shortlisted. So I can click select all and submit candidates. And this little modal is going to pop up and you can see I've selected these 3 candidates. I can do this on a one-to-one. If I wanted to submit Pam separately from Dwight, I could definitely do that. And then it'll ask you what things you want visible in this submittal. This is only relevant if you're going to send it via email, but we can go ahead and move on. So this is where you would write your candidate summary. You can write this with AI. This probably looks very similar to what you saw in executive presentations. It's important to know that no matter where you write your candidate summaries, whether that's here or in your executive presentation, it syncs back and forth. So if you write it here, it'll show up in your executive presentations. If you write it in your executive presentations, it will show up here. You can use it either way, whatever works best for you and your team. Again, I've gone through and written these with the story method, and you can choose to include your intake notes if you'd like, if that's something that is important to you, or you can skip it. If those are typically more internal notes, then I definitely wouldn't share those. But it will take you through each candidate to share the summary. And then it'll ask you, so you can copy the link and send it via email if you'd like to write your own email or share just the link with them separately. Or you can generate an email. This is obviously auto-generated. You can send this, or you can write your own email and it'll share the 3 candidates with your client. Again, I recommend writing your summaries and creating a shortlist presentation and sharing that through the hiring manager portal for the cleanest client experience. All right, so once you've decided who's going to move forward through your typical workflow, you've started sending them emails, you've screened them, we're working through, different people are coming in, moving through the pipeline, Pam's interviewing, Michael's interviewing. All right. So at this stage, you've asked your hiring manager to interview different candidates. So I'm going to refresh this because it is real time. They'll be able to see what you've done in your pipeline. So they've seen, okay, new people have moved to the short list and Oscar was submitted, and these people are the people that I'm interviewing. So they can come in here and see Pam. They've interviewed Pam, and they're going to leave a comment. Sandra, did you like Pam? Yes? All right. So Sandra likes Pam. She's going to say yes, love Pam, want to hire Pam. So once she sees that, or once she makes that comment in there, and obviously they're going to make a lot of comments, interview multiple candidates, make comments in multiple candidates, right? This is just for demo. But I can see in my activity what she commented. So Sandra said, love Pam, want to hire Pam. Awesome. Let's do it. Let's hire Pam. And that's the final step. You've fully collaborated with your client. Everything's linked back into your Loxo profile, into your database. So this is the easiest way to keep tabs on things. And all there's left to do is celebrate. So I will stop sharing here. And we can just go over the quick workflow since I know that was a really long demo. So when you prospect a client, you want to pitch them, you'll share that branded resume within that pitch. You'll open the job, you'll share your hiring manager portal with your client, you'll teach them how to use that portal and what they can do within the portal. You'll start sourcing candidates. Those branded resumes will be auto-created as more information in the profiles get added. Once you've longlisted, you can start sharing executive presentations, and you can do this throughout your entire workflow. Once you've shortlisted, you can write those candidate summaries. Really, you can write these whenever you're wanting to, whenever you're ready, but we know that this is typically when this happens. And then have the interviews, have your hiring managers leave feedback, and then you're ready to go.
Fantastic, Palmer. Thanks so much. I do have some questions for you. Let's start with Giselle, who asks if the system will prompt you when the hiring manager provides feedback.
Good question. Right now, it does not. It does leave activity. You can see that in activity, but it doesn't give you like a task or an update. That is something that people have requested a lot. So if you request that in Artemis, we can tag that and it can get prioritized within product.
I had a question about what the outbound funnel is referring to. I didn't see an outbound funnel. Do you know what he means, Palmer?
Might have been in the job workflow. If you don't have outbound in your job workflow, it's because you've customized it, which is great. So whatever you have in your typical job workflow obviously is in there. Outbound is in our demo environments because it's our recommendation that you put them into an outbound campaign when they are within a job.
Excellent. So Gina asks what the best process is for collecting data from candidates and keeping track in their profile.
People do this in a lot of different ways. A lot of people do this within intake notes. So whether you're screening or emailing back and forth, sharing information within intake notes because those are searchable. You can also use the AI note taker that will transcribe your video conferencing meetings, and those are now searchable as well. So if information is in those transcriptions, it will show up in your, if you wanted to search it. Otherwise, you can add it within notes of a certain job for that profile or that candidate. There's a lot of different ways to keep tabs on candidates. So it's really how you decide that you want to work within Loxo.
Shashi asks if you can import LinkedIn profiles into Loxo.
Yeah, so if you wanted to use the Chrome extension, you can import from any website. You can import profiles and people, candidates and contacts directly into your database.
You can also download them as a PDF and upload them if you wanted to, right?
Yes, yeah, you can add people in a bunch of different ways. You can upload their resume, you can add them via CSV, you can use the Chrome extension, add them manually if you just want to type in their information on your own. A bunch of different ways to add people to your database.
Derek is asking if that email you send to introduce the candidate creates a new pitch or if it's aligned to a previously created pitch.
It creates a new pitch. So if I was sending the same candidate to Sandra, so you can see that it auto-populated what I sent. It's because yesterday when I went to go in and write the email, I had already written it. So Loxo remembered that I wrote that, which is actually nice. So it was already in there when I went in there. If I had pitched the candidate already and maybe I wanted to send it to Logan at Office Depot instead, it would create a new pitch for Pam.
Let's see. Kimberly asks, do you have a view of what the client sees and can access? Are we able to limit their visibility?
Yes. So hold on, let me share my screen really quick. So this view, I know it looks really similar to the view of your Loxo account, but this is their view of the hiring manager portal and everything that they can see. You absolutely have the ability to turn on or off what they can and can't do and can see. So if you go into settings, you have to be an admin to do this, just FYI. But you go into job share permissions and you can turn on and off all of these different settings. So I will say for all of this, it's across all of your hiring manager portals. So not just specifically for that job. So if I turned off the name for the candidates in my portal, it would turn off the name in every single portal that I share. So you want to definitely think through what you're wanting to share and what you're not wanting to share within all of your hiring manager portals across your entire firm. But yes, you absolutely have the ability to customize what you want people to do and see. You also have the ability to show scorecard visibility. And then within a job, if you don't want them to upload candidates, if you don't want them to be able to move candidates within stages or add activity, like you can turn all of this on or off. Again, just it is global, so it's across all of your portals. So hopefully that answers your question.
Joy also mentioned that you can use an incognito window to open the link that you send to your client, and then you can see what they see.
Yes, that is definitely, that's how I did the demo today. If you have your own email within your Loxo profile, the easiest way to do this is with an incognito window because Loxo will identify your email as a user, so it won't give you the same view. So you have to use an incognito if you want to see for yourself. And just so you guys know, we do have a training video for your clients on how to use the portal within our support center, and we can share that later once we share everything. But if you don't want to copy paste the instructions on everything they can do and see in there every time, we do have a video that explains what they can see, how to do things, where to go, and all of that, because we know that they're new to the Loxo environment in general.
On that note, Kimberly asked if there's a login or app needed on the client side.
So when they click on the link, it'll send them a verification email with a code, and they'll have to just input that code into their portal, and then it'll auto log them in. So it's just a security thing, but they won't have a login and password or anything like that. It'll just be the code every time.
Is there a best practice for logging activity that will then be searchable in Loxo? Bernard asked.
So logging activity is searchable in Loxo. So if you wanted to filter people by activity, you go to recent activity here, and then you can select your activity type and filter that way by the people within Loxo. So it is searchable and things are auto logged. So when you move them through different pipeline stages in jobs, it'll auto update their activity in their candidate profile.
What is the best practice for adding notes and skills to a candidate profile that will then show up in the pitch candidate process?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways to add things to your candidate pitch process. So you can add skills to their candidate profile. So in their candidate profile, you can add different experience or education or skills. So if they have other skills that aren't in the resume, you can add them manually yourself if you wanted to. And then when you pitch the candidate, it'll show up as their profile. But as far as notes go, there's nothing within the pitch candidate that shares specific notes. But if you were going to submit a candidate, you can choose to include your intake notes, which some people really do. Like they have every single note they've ever used or ever had on this candidate, all of their background, all of their information within their intake notes. So this is very valuable for them to be able to add when they're pitching a candidate. And then you can always remove stuff that you didn't want to share.
And Ravi asks, what's the difference in the summaries written between long list, short list, and submitted? Would it all not be submitted?
So to answer your question, the candidate summary is not different for long list, short list, or submitting a candidate. It's the same across this person in this job specifically. So Pam for the office manager role at Office Depot has this submission summary, and this will show up in every executive presentation, every candidate submittal that you want to have. It's not included in the pitch because at this point, it's just a little bit of a different use case, right? Like you're pitching the person in general when you're pitching them, and then when you're submitting them, you're giving a lot more detail to why they need to be interviewed, and you've already done a screening and things like that. So it's a little bit deeper level. You could always create a submission summary and copy it into the email for your pitch, or you could always submit them instead of pitch them and then manually update that you've pitched if that's something that you're interested in. But generally, this is going to give you a lot deeper information for when you're ready to submit the candidate for interviewing or to your hiring manager, then you would probably share when you're pitching a candidate to win a job. But as you can see, these are all different for different jobs. So Pam is in 3 different jobs. Go Pam. She has 3 different submission summaries because every single job, obviously, it's going to be different to why she's great for that job and so on.
Deborah's asking if there's a place where we can play with this if we're not on Loxo yet. Deborah, we do have a free trial that you can use if you haven't done that already. If you go to loxo.co, on the top right, you'll see Start Free. You can sign up there. You can try out everything on the platform. It's a really good way to get a feeling if it works for you or not.
Yeah. I'll also add that on our website, we have product pages that have walkthroughs of this. So if you're not necessarily ready to input some information and play around with it in that way, we do have videos that kind of walk through step by step what this could look like for you and the benefits of each thing in a video on the product page itself.
Peyton is asking at what point in the workflow timeline are you screening candidates?
It really just depends on your workflow. I think everyone does this kind of at a different time. For us, I'll just show you our demo workflow, long list, short list, outbound screening. So you're screening before you're submitting them to the hiring manager for an interview. So you've long listed, you've shortlisted, they're in an outbound campaign. You're asking them, hey, are you interested in this role? They say yes, you screen them, and then depending on who you like after that, you're submitting them to your hiring manager to have them interview or to move forward in your interview process if you manage that holistically.
Ben is asking what Loxo does with his clients' email addresses. Is that information used for marketing or business development purposes?
Now, all the data in your database is yours and yours alone. We do not use any data that's from your database for anything.
And that's all we have in Q&A, and we are a few minutes past the hour. So I think this is a good place to stop. If you do have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to support, either through support@loxo.co or by asking Artemis. Artemis is really well versed in all of this, so they can answer a lot of questions for you. And other than that, we want to really thank you for taking the time to come to this webinar today and to chat with us and learn something new, I hope, and something helpful. So thanks again and have a great evening, everyone.